Welcome to A Well-Designed Business with your host, LuAnn. LuAnn has a lifetime of experience building a multi-million-dollar business with her husband and cousin, and she knows the challenges you face in your interior design business. LuAnn brings you real-life answers to your most pressing problems, as well as practical strategies to explode your interior design business. So, let's get to the business of interior design.
Hi, welcome to another episode of A Well-Designed Business. Today is our Design Biz Live feature with my friends Corey Klassen and Judith Neary. We're talking about how to manage not being the project manager. How many times have you felt like you were caught between your client and the contractor? You know the times when you've created a floor plan for a space only to go to your next site visit to find that a wall has been moved. Or, as you'll hear Corey discuss how on one of his recent projects, a random soffit was placed in the kitchen where he had designed cabinets to go to the ceiling. This soffit was not on the contractor drawings. What happens when this happens? And more importantly, how can you avoid being in this situation? Thankfully, Judith and Corey has some terrific insights and advice for you today on this subject. Now, speaking of project management, how well do you keep track and organize your responsibilities during this process? As Judith explains, a well-executed project relies on three legs of the stool: the client, the contractor, and you, the interior designer. You need to bring your A game, and My Doma Studio is here to help you do just that. It is the one place where you can easily keep every bit of information related to your projects. This is for you whether you are a small firm with 1 or 2 projects at any one time or a larger firm with 6, 7, 8 projects at a single time. It is critical that you be the professional in the room and have your details locked down. Go to www.mydomastudio.com/a-well-designed-business to see how My Doma Studio can help you be the one with the answers and the details organized and at hand. Alrighty, now, before we get to the show with Judith and Corey, I just want to say that you know that this show usually has the accompanying video on my YouTube channel, which can be found at A Well-Designed Business. But as typical, my life would not be complete if a tech gremlin didn't show up at least once a day. So, even though the entire time we were talking, I was seeing all 3 of us on the screen, it only recorded my video. So, let's just say I don't love it. I don't love the tech gremlins a lot. Anyway, I'm only airing the audio. You don't need to see my face for an hour. But the sin is that you really probably want to see Judith's facilitator. At one point, she discusses this, and it's pretty funny. So have no fear. Be sure you are following me on Instagram at LuAnn and on Facebook at facebook.com/a-well-designed-business, because I'll be sure to post some pictures of the facilitator that was gifted to Judith by a contractor. It's pretty hysterical, I have to say. Alrighty, so on to the show with Judith Neary and Corey Klassen. Hey everybody, welcome to Design Biz Live. I believe this is probably our 5th show, but I think it's topic number 4, because flat fee and hourly just kind of stretched over, I think, 2 or 3 shows. That was insane, that whole topic. But now we are talking about how to manage not being a project manager. As usual, Corey and Judith put their little clever spin on these topics for me and make me think. So here's what we're doing. We're talking about, first we're going to start with the definition of project management. The definition of project management as defined by Wikipedia is the discipline of initiating, planning, executing, controlling, and closing the work of a team to achieve specific goals and meet specific success criteria at a specified time. The primary challenge of project management is to achieve all of the project goals within the given constraints. Now, we all know that that's the primary challenge, right? There's no denying that. And I guess every firm has different sizes, right? I mean, every different size firm has different problems with project management. So, but there are some germane issues to it. And as typical for this sort of discussion, the Design Biz Live discussions, we don't just talk about, the big scope of project management. We're going to pick it apart a little bit and really go through the nuances of it, right? So welcome, Judith Neary and Corey Klassen. Hey.
Well, thank you, LuAnn, for having us again.
Yes.
And I'm going to let Corey talk in a moment here, so hang on, Corey. But I want to say to you, first, I tell you this each time, but I really thank you for the work that you're doing in our industry, because what I enjoy most about it is, first of all, listening to myself talk on podcasts. No, but but what I enjoy is hearing other designers, similar maybe focus or similar skill sets, and sometimes approaching the same topic that we've brought to you, but they have a different spin on it.
Right.
Because it's the diversity of our industry that is our strength and sometimes our weakness. So I really appreciate that you put so much effort, heart, and soul into having these conversations. And I'm sure your inner dialogue might be sometimes, oh God, do I have to ask this question again?
I have to tell you.
But go for it.
No,
okay?
I have to tell you, in almost 2 years, we're at like 260 or 70 shows. I've never had that thought. I actually have not. Because you know what? First of all, truthfully, it is almost always answered differently, right? No matter what you ask, it's almost like everybody has their own little spin on it. And I marvel at the different ways that people process the same information and then apply it to their own business. And that's really the really cool part of it for me. I mean, there are certain things that we all have to do. We have to have our systems, and, you have to do all of those things well. But even in that, we all can do them just a little bit differently. And so, so no, I'm not bored yet. You'll know when I'm bored, because there'll be no more show. Yeah, no, not at one iota bored yet. So I could talk about business all day, all night, all week, everything. I love it though. So it's cool. But I thank you guys for showing up, because you not only bring us a lot of information, but I have a heck of a lot of fun when you two are here. So
Corey,
how do we want to start this?
Did you want to say something, Corey?
Not yet. No, you stole the show so far. So.
All right. Well, the topic for this particular podcast broadcast is about how to manage not being a project manager, and it really came out about because Corey was having a meltdown on a project with the homeowner and a contractor, and it got down to project management, and so he started thinking about that, and I said to Corey, well, how about our next podcast for LuAnn is how to manage not being a project manager, because I find in my role as a sole proprietor it to be somewhat challenging in that oftentimes that expectation of project management sort of defaults to me. And the other challenge is when it shouldn't default to me, how do I navigate that scenario?
Okay. And so what you're saying is that, there's in situations where you're not the project manager and you're not expected to be, but then the homeowner is leaning on you in order to do that, right?
Sometimes the homeowner ends up leaning on me as in my role as a designer in the project is, well, when is this going to happen, and what about this, and how does that happen, and facilitating all of that. And oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, really the person that has the power tools, and the contract to execute the project is the one that should be project managing it.
Okay.
Now, for me, think of it as a three-legged stool. I have the homeowner as one leg. I'm the designer on the project as another leg, and the contractor is the third leg. So I'm not a design build firm. I'm an independent designer. So if one of those legs of that stool isn't working really well or performing to the expectations or stepping up to the expectations, then the stool falls over. Okay.
Right.
I don't want those kinds of bruises on my backside when that stool falls over. Okay. So the challenge is, how do I facilitate this, or how do I help stabilize that stool, that three-legged stool, so that in the end, the project is executed, but not take on the role of project manager, because that's really not in my wheelhouse. So that becomes very challenging. Okay. How to navigate that.
Okay. So where do we want to go from there? Do we want to start to talk about the pros and cons and how to manage that, or do we want to start with the problem that you recently faced, Corey, and maybe how you see the problem, the reason it came about, and the way you worked your way through it? Like, how do you guys want to pick this apart?
I'd be happy to share how or the situation that we were facing, or we seem to continue to face. As a smaller firm, we do not project manage because we don't have the capacity to do it, as well as it's really not our skill set. I prefer to profess that it's more of I'd rather have a skilled person managing the project than have us as interior designers or design professionals managing the project. We should be taking care of the design and those details, and we should be working in concert with the whole orchestra to execute the project. So we take an administrative approach when it comes to construction, where we are administering our contract documents, and that includes our construction drawings and our specifications. In this particular situation, it is quite a beautiful property, and it's a general contracting firm that we're not used to working with, and they're not used to working with us. There were a lot of situations where our construction drawings called out information or didn't have the information, and there was no communication that came our way. So we would show up to do a site verification, and that site verification would go awry, meaning we'd have to do a site report. I don't like doing site reports. I think they're annoying, to be honest, because they take so much time and they take so much energy, and there's so much incredible follow-up that has to happen with site reports. In this situation, I felt that it was such a drastic issue or performance problem that we had to do a site report.
Tell me what is a site report, just so that I'm clear on what was missing and what you had to do.
Well, a site report will be a document that we produce to our contracted party. So in this case, it's to our client. So we produce a document for the client that itemizes performance problems or certain construction issues that we are identifying on the job site. And those include photographs as attachments. So everything is labeled as image 1, image 2, image 3, image 4 as an appendix. But in front of that is a statement of what the issue is. So there's a point number 1, whatever that issue might be, and then it's a bullet point underneath, and then there's a suggested resolution, or we identify that this is not called out on our construction drawings, and this will impact X, Y, Z later.
So give me another example of what that means. So for instance, you walk into, are we talking about in the phase of the project where the sheetrock and the drywall have not been installed yet? You're in construction phase. It's the sticks as they call it. Or are you talking about, the sheetrock is installed, you've walked into the bathroom, and maybe the rough plumbing has been put in, but you know that the toilet is supposed to be on one wall and you've walked in and the rough plumbing is on a different wall? Like, are these the kinds of things that we're talking about?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, and they were all happening.
And because you were told in an original construction document that the toilet would be in a certain location, and now when you go to, say, map out the tile floor plan or the tile wall plan, you're like, whoa, wait a second.
Nothing's fitting. Nothing's going to fit.
Okay.
Or you're actually going to have a functional adjacency issue, or you're going to have a safety issue. And these are kind of bigger problems in that, in that, as an example, we showed up, everything looked great. 2 weeks later, we showed up, and all of a sudden there's a bulkhead. Like, what? Why is there a bulkhead here?
Is that like a big beam, you mean? Like a big girder beam
it's like
or something?
I guess you'd call it a soffit.
Okay.
So, yeah. So in Canada, we call it a bulkhead.
Okay.
But for us,
That sounds
soffits
like
are
a ship or
outside.
something, like we're going on a cruise.
Yeah.
So there's this bulkhead constructed or soffit constructed in an area where we had cabinets with molding on top, and we're like, nope, that's not going to work. And why is that there? So we go back to our construction drawings, and I looked at my set that I had with me, and I went, no, we didn't ask for a bulkhead here. You didn't need one. So I started looking around the job site for the construction drawings, which were nowhere to be found.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So
Okay.
issue number 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 then got discovered through that process. So we documented that, say, hey, there's a bulkhead. And then we met on site 3 days later saying, you know what? This is our site report. Let's go over it. Contractor showed up without drawings. Oh my goodness.
Well,
So-
because he probably knew that the drawings didn't include the bulkhead, so he didn't want it right there in front of everybody. Like, let's be serious. They're conveniently left at home.
We do know on this particular project we continue to be thrown under the bus, but I'm going to accept that underneath the bus is where we are going to be lying. And we'll just continue to scream from there.
Corey Klassen, roadkill.
That's right. So we show up, I don't know how many weeks later, and the bulkhead is still there. Still
and no
there.
one has actually, to this point, explained the need for it to be there. It's not like somebody said, well, there's a pipe there, I have to leave it. I'm sorry I didn't tell you about it, but no.
There
Just
is what there was no
random
reason for.
soffit, like for
Just a
decoration.
random soffit, just pretty ugly. So 3 days later, our cabinetry is getting delivered, and this is our product. So we're delivering our cabinetry, knowing that there's a bulkhead there and knowing that our cabinets are not going to fit there. And all this time, we're communicating, hey, the bulkhead is still there, the bulkhead is still there, the bulkhead is still there. And we show up with our cabinet delivery, and the bulkhead is still there. So we're not installing these cabinets. That's taken care of by the general contracting company because it's actually screwing into a wall, and that's actually a liability problem for us. So the installers call us saying, hey, what's this bulkhead for? And we're like, that's a great question.
It's not for anything.
Do you mind ripping it out?
Could you just blink your eyes like Genie and make it go away?
I mean, there were probably about 7 or 8 different high-level issues, but we can definitely talk about this soffit as being a recurring theme on the project as to why it's not happening. And what we really have now discovered as a team is, wow, this particular firm might be great, but they don't work with designers well. They just don't. They don't.
Okay.
So what are we going to do? What are we going to do? We have to find a medium.
Can I ask you a question, which
Sure.
is going to take us a tiny bit off topic, so don't lose the train of thought there. But
Oh no.
I know.
Oh, no.
But like, not for nothing, but what would happen to a consumer that was building a home with the contractor and didn't have the designer in the process? So the contractor isn't capable of designing that kitchen. Does homeowner now work with the contractor, and now she or he separately hires a kitchen designer, separately hires, somebody to do millwork design, separately, like they're now basically GCing every little piece of it, which is just insanity. Because a builder is not qualified to do that to that level of detail, right?
Well, some of them are, and I'm not going to say that some of them aren't,
Okay.
because that certainly is the case. But some of them are, being in their experience, they know how things need to work. So a client will hire a general contractor expecting that the contractor comes with the design. So in a lot of cases, we have a general contractor says, hey, I'm not a designer. You need a design. I can't price anything.
I'll build it whatever you say,
anything.
but you got to tell me what to do. Like, and of course, we're not talking about the outside of the house. You decide on a center hall colonia with 3 bedrooms on the first floor and 3 bedrooms on the second floor. That he can do, but it's the individual. Like, do you want arches? Do you want square arches? Right? All of that comes in the design process.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's stuff that everybody knows that designers take care of. However, there is this mystique that interior designers cost a lot of money. And I think that that's where that disparity happens sometimes with general contractors. They say, don't worry about it, I can take care of it for you. But what they are actually saying is, I'm going to design it for you, and it's going to cost you 30% more than if you had hired a designer.
How about just, again, I'm keep getting just a tiny bit off topic here, but how about if there's an architect involved? The architect doesn't do these or does an architect? I mean, they can, but as a rule, the architect, again, is just giving over the drawings for that center hall, colonial, blah, 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 and then not doing these individual, like, don't put a soffit there because we've designed kitchen cabinets. Like, you actually need, what is it? You need the architect to design the house, then you need the contractor to build the house, and you really should have a designer be the person that's gluing everything together.
That's pretty much what we would say, yes. And I would love to change our terminology from interior designer to interior architect, because that would make everything so much easier.
Right.
But we're not at that stage, and that's a conversation that's way past the post, and we're certainly not going to have it anymore. But there are different design elements that need to be pieced together as far as a design cohesion, and then an architectural details, and then interior schematics, and how all of these all of the elements that need to come together for a vision. Now, that being said, there are some clients that don't really care.
Right.
So
and you also probably have the level of builder where they're putting out to more or less a cookie cutter home. And they're like, look,
absolutely.
This is how your home is going to look. Pick your color, but this is okay. So I went a little off track there. Okay. So, so now to get this back to where we were going, what you're saying is that you're trying to have a conversation here for your colleagues that find themselves in that situation where they are not in charge of the project management. They are the one leg of the stool, and possibly whatever the pitfalls are amongst them when the builder or contractor puts out a particular set of drawings and then doesn't adhere to it, but you're 3 steps down the line and your things that you've designed go to that original thing. And now we've got major conflict, not only major conflict, but there's money involved here. And
additional charges.
Yeah, and the client is doing a he said, she said, or is it just like, look, these are the drawings I got. There was no soffits there. Like, stop. Is that what we're going to talk about today?
Let's back up to the definition of a project manager for a second. Because in project management, it's a person that understands not only all the trades, but a really good project manager will not only understand the construction trades, but will understand the sequence of things that need to, and the way that they need to happen. Okay, so a really good project manager is the conductor for the orchestra. Okay. So someone that has that skill set includes knowledge, not only knowledge of the building trades, and preferably hands-on, but also is a really good communicator, and then recognizes when there's a problem or recognizes potentially when there's a problem. They're also responsible for sequencing and scheduling. So they have to understand how long things take and when as an example, when cabinets should arrive. Okay. Cabinets should arrive not when it's being framed, okay, ideally, but maybe just before drywall. So understanding the sequencing and the staging of a project and when things need to get done and in the correct sequence. So a true project manager really has a huge grasp of that.
Okay.
So where we fall down in the process or the process of executing a project is if there isn't somebody that owns that. Okay. Now, in Corey's situation, his firm, puts the package together and then hopefully relies on the contractor to interpret that and then execute it, but the contractor is not owning that part of the process. Okay. So somehow that contractor does not have a person internally to manage that's on the phone, like, where's the tile? Why aren't you guys on the job site? Okay, I need the electricians here. Okay, so that contractor doesn't have a conductor for his orchestra. And that becomes very, very problematic. And particularly in today's environment, because in my area, and I'm sure you all are experiencing this, if there's a contractor that's available to start a project in the next 3 weeks, there's a reason that the contractor's not working. Okay. There's a problem there. If that contractor's not booked 3 months out, 6 months out, that's a problem.
Okay.
So the challenge then is when you have a large scale project, and sometimes even a small scale project, somebody has to own it. Somebody has to own the calendar.
Okay.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right, Judith, because if a contractor is available tomorrow, that is to us as a huge red flag. Projects shouldn't be available the next day. There's still a design process to go through. There has to be kind of a laddered sequence, if you will, where things have to fall in place. And some of the things that when you have those types of contractors that are available, they don't have the right workman's insurance, or they're not carrying it because they think it's a waste of time, which is actually up here, it's against the law. They don't have the right structural insurance because they're modifying your home. They don't have carryover insurance. They can't carry over to the other trade partners that they're hiring or subcontracting. So, and then they're not verifying that those sub-trades have their insurance and have their workman's insurance all in place. So there's a lot of minutia that happens in that initial flush of conversations that aren't being talked about. And good project managers have that information in front of you when you're ready to sign your budget. So,
okay, but the homeowner is, I know from previous conversations with you guys that you both prefer to work with the contractors that you work with on a regular basis. I mean, most designers probably do. But the reality is that that's not your call, right? I mean, you can make a suggestion. If the homeowner finds you first, you can make a suggestion. If the homeowner finds the contractor first, maybe you are one of the ones that the contractor refers. But we're really, it sounds like to me, we're probably talking more about the occasion when, like what you just went through, where the designer and the contractor are not accustomed to being a team together, right? I mean, and obviously you could still have problems even when they are, but hopefully they're not, putting you under the bus when that happens. They're all just coming to the table and saying, okay, this was me, I blew it, right?
Right.
So I have a good one to tag on to what you just said. Okay. So sorry, I'm going to try not to say so. Really. I don't mean to. It's just how my brain sets up the next sentence.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So.
Thank you. I have a homeowner, that lovely couple have been taking about 1.5 years to make a decision on when to do their project. And they have now finally agreed to do it, to try and do the project once again this spring in May. And I said, that's great. You have to decide on a contractor in the next week. That's it. And my challenge is I'm not a design build firm. So I'm not part of a bigger team. I'm the really big team is in my head. Okay. A lot of people moving around up there. And so for me to help facilitate their decision-making processes, I need to connect them with a contractor. So back to the three-legged stool. My challenge is the contractor that we had hoped to use on the project, that I had hoped to use on the project so that I could actually survive the project, is not available. So the homeowner is now recommending or looking for other contractors within our zip code, which is completely dangerous because it's a very small town. And everybody has opinions. So I'm asking the homeowners to find someone outside of our zip code, and I'm trying to connect them with someone else that I've worked with, because my inner dialogue here is I don't have the ability to train a new contractor. Okay. This sounds terrible.
Right.
Or I'll show you, or facilitate, I'll go back to my facilitator, facilitate a new contractor with a homeowner that is already fairly high maintenance and has trouble making decisions. Okay. And and their inability to make decisions is a clue for me that, guess what, we're going to be changing our mind during the course of the project. So I know I'm headed to Design Biz.
So, but you won't give a thought to just declining the project?
Well, if they don't agree to this one contractor that we're looking for outside of our zip code, then in fairness, I'm going to tell them I can't help them.
Right.
I can't afford there is not enough money to help me manage the kind of chaos that is going to happen on this project without a team in place. So it goes back to being a team. Right. So as an independent designer, very challenging to be the third leg on the stool and to find the right partner and to align it to the right client. And very, very challenging. And I'll share one other situation. And I literally just got off the phone half an hour ago coaching a homeowner on how to facilitate. All right, I'm just going to show it to you. Here's my facilitator, okay? It is a 2x4 upholstered in green velvet. Look at
podcast green.
2x4.
It's actually podcast green, right. Judith.
And I have my no fear button, okay, and my name and the velvet, the fringe.
You went out of your way and custom made this so that you could beat contractors with it.
No, this is how crazy this is. It was given to me by a contractor.
So the blow would be just a little softer with the velvet on it.
It's exactly what he said. Exactly what he said. He says, I know you're going to hit me. I just don't want to have as many bruises.
Oh my God, that's hysterical. That's hysterical.
But one of the and I'll go back to this. So this conversation when I was having with a homeowner prior to this podcast, because I'm like, oh my God, this is fabulous material for this podcast. The homeowner the contractor, very nice man, okay, very good at what he does, but is using this excuse of, God, I can't get my subs to the job site. Everybody's too busy. They're too busy. I can't even get them here to the job site. And we're at the job site the other day, and I'm asking him questions like, well, have you ordered the special order tile yet? Well, no, I haven't even called the tile contractors. Okay, have you ordered the flooring that's going to be installed because it needs to sit in the house for 2 weeks? Well, no, I haven't ordered that yet. So my inner dialogue is, where's my 2x4?
Right.
and why did I leave it at home?
Right.
In the studio. I should have had it with me. And so what's happening is he's not project managing it.
Right.
And so by default, it's falling to me because I'm the advocate for the homeowner and I need to get them through this project. So I am coaching the homeowner on how to ask the questions like, where's the project calendar? Okay. What is the estimate? Give us a project calendar. And so many designers do not use that tool to help educate their homeowner at the beginning of the sales process.
Right. I was just thinking as you were going through all of this, I'm thinking to myself, the breakdown is at the beginning. Because I can see how the homeowner wouldn't have the foresight to be able to think all this through and see the where the road bumps are going to be. But in this conversation, as designers, you know where the road bumps are going to be. And so if what you're saying is especially if you're a solo and you've got a small firm, but even not, if you're a bigger firm and you're going to do even bigger, whatever. The thing is, when you're getting ready to sign your LOA with that particular client, it sounds like to me some of the things that you should be saying is, and who is the contractor? And is that contractor responsible for project management? And so that contractor will provide a project schedule and and basically tell the homeowner, give them a little cheat sheet of what they should expect from their contractor. And if they go to their contractor and ask for these things and the contractor's like a deer in the headlights, then that's a red flag, right?
Yes.
You actually bring up a really good point because this is something that we worked on yesterday as a team, and I was trying to find it on my desk here and I can't. We redeveloped our proposal. So just completely blew it apart, put it back together. Because what I found is we were missing key pieces of information, such as, although we are not project managers, we will work alongside your selected general contractor to ensure a successful project completion. From time to time, Miscommunications will happen. We will not receive information. Construction activities will happen, and we will not know that there's been a change. This is a conversation for you to have between you and your other contracted party.
Right.
So we kind of, right at the front of our proposal, it's a letter that says, "Hey, hi, thanks for considering our proposal." And then paragraph number 4, boom. We're just kind of covering off, your COA or your pain in the butt factor, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
We're making that statement right in our proposal before we even get to the letter of agreement, because our letter of agreement absolutely clarifies what the contractor's responsibilities are.
Okay.
And
so
what
the
our
proposal is
responsibilities
different from
are.
the letter of agreement. Right. I understand. Okay.
Yeah. So the letter of agreement reinforces the proposal,
Right.
but our proposal says it in a language that is actually, I got to think about this point, because it's actually going to, if I'm being told it right now, it's going to be a thing.
Well, and
later.
that's what I love about it, because I have to say, I just think that probably 95% of the homeowners would really prefer to know what the red flags are that are the ones that happen over and over. You know what it is? It's almost like if somebody were to send you to marriage counseling, like there's pre-wedding counseling, right? Like pre-marriage counseling. So there's pre-wedding counseling that, like, you sit there every week and you just look at each other and the person, says whatever. But then there's pre-wedding counseling that says, how many kids do you want to have? Are you going to raise them, Christian or Jewish? And are you going to do this? And are you going to like here are the things like that you are going to run into in a marriage. Think about it now, as opposed to, do you feel like this is going to be good? You know what I'm saying? And so I feel like a homeowner doesn't necessarily know what these things are. And if you can be the educator as the designer of, these are the places that a project is going to break down and you're going to want to pull your hair out in about 3 months, that's a service in my mind.
Let's go back to,
No, go ahead. It is
All
a
right.
service, and it
is a service. But let's go back to how to manage not being a project manager.
Okay, so now what we're doing is we're going back to the fact of the matter is we've just laid out all the ways it can torture you and bite you in the butt, but you still have to deal with, you're not the one in charge, and that's what you want to talk about. Okay.
And so your comment, because it always goes back to the sales process, and you know what, it's sales.
Right.
You have to sell yourself.
Right.
You have to sell why they're going to buy you, why they're going to rent your brain to reduce their pain.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Well, that sounds vaguely familiar. And that's exactly what I use. So
hashtag Judithism.
The sales process, the communication piece, the dating part of the project, when you're getting together and you're figuring out how to work together, you have to include that conversation that says, I'm not the project manager and these are the things that are going to happen.
Right.
I'll give you some examples here, and particularly when we talk about project management, because oftentimes I will use a blank calendar and go over the project with a homeowner and kind of scare them. Like, if you want this done in 6 months, you have to have this done by this date.
Right.
And I'll print it out and give it to them. And it's like, here's your working document. Now we have to find a contractor. Okay.
Right.
And now we have to have these key dates. That's basic project management, but you have to educate them at the beginning about, this is what they should be looking for in the contracted packages and their contractor services. And I'm going to let Corey talk here in a second, but I got really worked up here all of a second. So there you go. I had a homeowner come in, and they said, well, I'm going to have this, and this done on my house, and I'm going to act as the general contractor, and I'd like to know how you can help me. And I said to her, point blank, because I have no filter anymore, I said, well, my design fee just increased by 100% because you're going to be acting as your own general contractor, and my pain factor just increased by that much. Right. And she goes, well, what do you mean? And I got out the calendar and I sat down and said, this is what's going to happen. And she said, well, maybe I should consider hiring a general contractor. And I said, yes, you should.
Right.
And if you use these two of my favorites, guess what? My design fee just went down by 100% or 50% or whatever,
Right.
because I know that with this team in place, I know that my pain factor is incredibly reduced in these certain elements of this project.
Right.
So going back to having to train a new contractor on a project, well, that pain factor is going to be very high.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to have to reevaluate my fee structure. So that goes back to that selling skills.
It does. And I want to say in there that I can imagine there's probably somebody listening going, well, if I were to tell a client point blank that if they use that contractor or don't use a GC, I'm going to charge them more. And if they use that one, I'm going to charge them more. And if they use that one, I can reduce my fees. Then I can guarantee you there's somebody that's thinking, well, if I were to say those things, I won't get the project. But that is the point. You don't really want that project. And if you do take that project, you do want to make twice as much money on it because it is the pain factor. I mean, right, exactly. So that's one of the big lessons of the podcast is that has come through over and over again from experienced interior designers like yourselves, designers that have been down the road many, many times. And again, we've heard it often in the beginning. I've had many designers say in the beginning, you take everything and anything that comes your way because you have to learn it. And I get that. Yeah. I get that. And almost to a one, every designer has expressed that sort of sentiment. But the reality is that the more educated you get, the better you get at doing your own work and your own designs and your own managing of your own portion of the project. You do understand that working with a contractor that's not reliable or working with a homeowner as their GC is going to be a pain in the butt. It's not going to be a productive process. And so make more money or don't do it.
And the prospecting part of I'm going to say that word again, the prospecting part of your sales cycle before they become a client.
Right.
I'm just going to clear my throat again. Before they become a client, that's critical information to gather. You need to understand which direction is this client going. Or this potential client going. There's no harm in asking upfront questions to try to get to the root cause or the root of what you kind of understand or assess the needs of this client to be. That's our job as interior design professionals. We need to assess the client's needs. If we're going off on 1,000 directions with our own thought processes, but we're not covering off, okay, how do you want the construction to work?
Right.
We're not covering that off. That's still a part of our sales process because we're still selling at that stage.
Right.
So understanding like the dating phase, Judith called it, or prospecting phase, as I like to call it, before they're a lead, they're a prospect, they're a client. That's the way it's supposed to go. And if you don't understand how that part will work, maybe you need to take a really good look at yourself and say, is this really something I want to do? Like you said, LuAnn, is this really something that I really want to do? Am I seeing any tangible red flags? Or am I not hearing my red flags? Because that's a whole nother problem. But there's no harm in telling somebody, I think you really got a great project. I don't think it's for me.
Right.
And no harm in doing that.
I also know with experience and people skills, as you develop them and hone them over time, you can handle it just the way Judith has and have it come out positive. In other words, you can scare the little bejeebies out of them a little bit and then have them say, oh, okay, this is somebody that I respect. This designer has a great reputation. And this designer basically is saying, whether she or he would actually do that and charge me twice, I don't know. But if they really think and they're saying that, then maybe I should get a GC for this. And so it still can come out successful, but not to be afraid to have the hard conversation.
So
exactly.
I'm probably more direct than most people.
Yeah.
It you know what?
But you get to be that way. It comes with age. It comes with experience and age.
No,
yes.
I'm just flat out grumpy.
Yeah.
I'm like, get away from me, you and your auras, with all your, anyways, no. In fairness, when conversation with the two of you, I'm blurting out and I'm not filtering as much as I quote unquote normally would.
Sure.
But there is a nice way to say that.
And a productive way.
In a productive way. And that's your zone of genius.
Right.
Okay. And how you get there. An example would be, let's say you're a designer and you're starting out and you're not quite sure how that project management piece goes. And how your role is going to be on a project. Maybe that part of your contract or your agreement is to be determined. So that fee part could be determined. Okay, so you leave that open. I had this situation here recently. Homeowner came to me and I said, look, here's my estimated fees to get your project done based on, what your expectations are. My challenge is I don't know who the contractor is at this point. So I can't tell you what the back end piece of that is going to be because I don't know, is that contractor the kind of contractor that likes blue tape and Post-it notes and a Sharpie? Right. Or is that the kind of contractor that wants detailed drawings on 24 by 36 paper with samples and everything? So I said, there's some unknown elements here and I don't know quite how I'm going to fit into that piece of it. So we left that part of the contract open, or the letter of agreement open.
Okay. So
now,
that's a valid point.
Yeah. So now a contractor's been identified. Oh, oddly enough, happens to be my favorite one. So
snap.
Sure. So I know for me, it's, Post-it notes and blue tape.
Right. So you're not doing hours and hours of drawings at home that you have to, in your studio. Right. Exactly.
So now I can finish that part of that letter of agreement. And so sometimes as a designer, particularly as an independent designer, now this won't work for Corey and his team, but if you're an independent designer like me and you're that third leg of the stool, okay, I hope at least I'm a third leg of the stool. I don't want to be the seat, okay, get sat on, right? I'd rather be the support. That may work for you to give yourself some options to either opt out or to get them to a certain point where then they go on their own or they come back to you and say, so if you're not comfortable with certain elements, again, after assessing your skills and you find that your zone of genius is somewhere and it doesn't involve project management, then just take that equation out of your proposals.
Okay.
We recently had a situation where we were proposing on a project and the client, the homeowner, said it, client, but not even a client yet. They came in with their general contractor, and through our proposal presentation, I discovered that there was overlapping services. And that was actually a really good discovery because the general contractor said, oh, that's actually something I know I can take care of. Actually, there's an architect on the project. I'm like, oh, didn't know that.
Okay.
So I was able to discover something in the process of going through the proposal, and I kind of said, you know what, hang on, let me just rejig these numbers and let me just print out you a new one right now.
Okay.
So I did it right then and there because I find that it's easier to resolve that right then and there and discover as you discovered it, because it shows a reaction. It shows that you're willing to take accountability and ownership, but as to the particular problem. But what happened was the general contractor actually said, that's actually better. I know I can do this part, and I know I'm going to lean on you for this, and this, and I'm going to lean on the architect for this, and this. I think this is going to work.
That's great.
So I was not selling her, I was selling him.
Right,
so
right, exactly.
That was an interesting scenario.
Yeah, that is
so knowing
interesting.
And that talked a lot about how he was going to project manage something, because we had a timetable proposed. And I said, I turned it around and I went to him and I said, does this fit within what your expectations would be of a timetable? He looked at it and said, yep, that's perfect. I'm like, okay, great. So now he's selling her to me. Oh, sorry, he's selling me to her, right, at the same time. So it was a really good process to go through. Now that we understand how he works a little bit and he understands how we work, and she's got a good understanding of how that was going to work out with us. So I feel positive about it. Of course, I still don't know, right? We don't have a final answer. Okay. But it was an interesting scenario to be able to, like I said, right at that moment, rejig the numbers, reprint it, repropose, having learned some new information. So you're always learning information as you go through your process. And that's a good project management tool to have as well when you want to kind of exit out of project management. So we were able to discover those parts.
That sounds good. I like that. I mean, that sounds like the beginning of a great team. Everybody, homeowner, contractor, designer, and architect, actually.
Absolutely.
So I have one potentially closing thought on this is, as an independent designer, and maybe as a designer starting new to the business or even seasoned in the business, with the different business models that are out there today, and often so many times now homeowners are shopping on the internet, and they really don't want a design build firm as much as they want somebody to just show up and install it. Okay. And so that becomes a little challenging. So as a independent designer, and you're trying to figure out, how do I fit into a project with a homeowner that I have a relationship with or a potential relationship with, and I have a wild card on a contractor. So you know how you sell yourself to a homeowner. You can also pick up the phone and have that conversation with that potential contractor saying, I'm working with this homeowner. They would like to have this project with you. I've never worked with you before. What's your expectation of me?
Okay.
So kind of like, hey,
right.
What would you like me to do for you? How do you like to work?
That's a great idea, and you're talking about before you actually present your proposal to the client, you find out who they're talking about working with, because then you can, the homeowner already, we've established, often doesn't know what they don't know. They don't know what the holes and the gaps in the services are and where the overlaps would be, and where they would just meet between you and the contractor. So you're saying, call up the contractor that they're saying, get a handle on how that contractor works, what they're accustomed to providing, and what they're accustomed to saying, hey, not me, that's you, right?
Yeah.
I like it. I like it.
Because, and you have to ask the contractor, are you the blue tape and Post-it note and Sharpie kind of guy, or do you want it all detailed out ahead of time?
Right.
Because they have their own sort of personal preferences. And I have actually found that to be a little challenging, because they don't expect that call.
Right. Right.
And they're like, wow, I didn't expect this call. Well, that's interesting that you've called me, and let me think about it. Okay. And let me get back to you. Or they might be, well, I like at least some pretty pictures,
Could you make an idea book and house for me, and I'll just run from there?
Right.
But I like that, because it sets up the relationship on a professional level, so that, on some level, he's put on, or she, the builder, is put on notice. Don't underestimate my ability here, and I'm going to handle this in a professional way from beginning to end. And also, it's just like the agreement with the client at the beginning. You're going to sit there and specify with the contractor some agreements, so that when the soffit is there, and it's not supposed to be there, you can turn around and look and say, we agreed that I would work off the drawings that you made, and here's the drawing without a soffit. Yeah.
A big gap in that conversation is just to kind of fill in about a bit of back-end information, is that when we produce a construction drawing, that's actually a contract document. It's legally binding. So if a client accepts it, the contractor must follow it. And if there's a problem, the contractor must inform us. So there's, a lot of those little things that need to happen that often don't. So, I mean, I'm fine with going in with a red Sharpie and marking up my drawings if that's what I need to do. That's totally acceptable and fine. Or if I have to reprint an entire set because of a particular kind of structural problem that we discovered, then that's what we have to do too.
Here's the fundamental difference between Corey and myself. Okay, that whole soffit thing, that first visit, I would have sledgehammered that out. I'm like, really? 3 visits later, Corey, it's still there. Take your freaking hammer with you.
No. Okay, we're laughing, but would you have seriously taken a sledgehammer?
I would have taken it out.
You
Judith may have taken her hammer, but if anybody knows me, I don't really catch that well, so you can be sure that I'm not going to hit a piece of drywall or whatever framing member that is very well either.
What if you had taken a sledgehammer to it and you found out that they put some sort of pipe or something there?
Then I would have said, thanks for letting me know. I mean, like, again, it's, you know,
you're talking about after you found out that it was there for no reason at all, but it's still there. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
5 visits.
5
5.
visits.
Yeah.
And I have to say, at the end of the day, is it still there now in real time as we're talking, or is it gone?
No, it got removed by the cabinet installer.
Okay.
And there was nothing in there, was there?
Nothing.
Yeah. See?
So what the
5
heck
visits
was
later,
that
it's
about?
still there?
Why did the contractor put it there? Like, who just puts a random bulkhead in?
So in our field of view, because everybody's going to have a different field of view. In our field of view, if we're asking for a bulkhead or a soffit to be constructed, it's going to appear on the construction plan, as well as the elevation. We're going to call out what the bulkhead is.
Right.
So yeah, we're going to cross-reference that. I don't expect everybody to do that because everybody has different skills and they have different techniques that they want to do. However, when we were looking at the elevation, trying to understand, hey, was it us that communicated that incorrectly? Like, no, that says molding. No, that says stacked molding on top of a cabinet. So yeah, no, it wasn't for any particular reason.
Wow.
Well, LuAnn, you forget. Okay, I've told you this before. Okay, humans are involved, and some of them are not going to pass drug testing.
That's actually really funny, Judith, because I actually added that statement into our letter of agreement and under general other matters. And the first statement says, humans are involved in your project at every step of the way. Things will be imperfect, they will arrive imperfect, or they may be constructed imperfectly.
Right.
Nothing is going to be perfect.
Mine says humans are involved, and some of them may not pass drug testing. I mean, Corey made it much nicer. It's the second line on my contracts, on my letters of agreement. Yeah.
Oh my God!
So
I have to go to Vashon Island one day. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, no,
I got to see this crazy place.
I wish I could. I was distracted. I just have to tell you this, and then I have to go because the aliens have landed.
Okay.
Do you know that movie Signs with Mel Gibson?
Vaguely. I mean, I remember it, but
Okay.
I don't remember it well.
Okay, the aliens come to his cornfield in Pennsylvania. Yes. Okay, he comes home and his 2 kids are wearing tinfoil hats with peaks. Okay.
Yeah.
An incredibly mature man just walked by my window wearing that tinfoil hat. I'm going to go lock my door. I'm going to call my husband and tell him to come and get me. You have it's just too weird. I'm sorry. I'm so distracted. I can't think anymore. All I can say is I'm really glad I have my facilitator here with me. Good Lord.
Oh, man. I'll tell you. All right. Well, okay. So I think that we did some justice to this topic, I have to say. As usual, there's way more layers than is just on the surface, of course. But I think that the bottom line that I feel are the things that we want to round this up with are that humans are involved and they're not all going to pass drug testing. So that means from there that your client really probably doesn't have a full grasp on all of the variables that is facing them in this process. And it might not necessarily be, quote unquote, your responsibility as the interior designer to educate the client on the responsibilities of the contractor vis-a-vis the responsibilities to you towards the contractor. However, it serves you very well if you are the one that brings it up and you enunciate what you will and won't do as part of your thing, what you do believe and understand is part of the responsibility of the contractor and as the project manager, and also to take the other step. If it is a variable of a contractor that you don't know, get to know them, call up and ask them their process so that you know how you're going to build and what you're going to put, including in your process. So that's like really, to me, it's the basis of every great relationship, business, personal, or whatever. Be clear, be specific, and do it up front before the problems come, right?
Exactly.
So I would like to ask for your listeners, because we've asked previously for some feedback, like, you know what are your best practices out there? Mm-hmm. How do you manage how do you manage not being a project manager?
Right.
Or if you do provide that role for your client and for your contractor as a project manager, what are some tips on how you manage that? You know what? I'm sure there's an app on your phone, okay? But get over it. It comes down to a personal skill that you possess, okay? You know, or it's an app, but bottom line is it's something that you possess.
And it comes down to being organized. Let's be serious.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, being highly organized. I mean, I don't know. Those are our project folders behind us that you can see if you're watching by video. If you're not, then
you don't have X-ray vision. You can't see them.
No. But we have checklists. We have forms. We have processes. We have client file folders. We have client documents. We have, being clear on what our role within our own task is, or our own set of tasks to achieve our deliverables with our clients. That's definitely project managing ourselves,
right?
I think,
right.
But yeah, I don't. There's a lot of unteachable things out there, and project management is one of those unteachable things. You either got it or you don't.
No, it's
and
true.
And I think it's just a wise topic. Really wise.
Yeah.
Well, I just want to say thank you, LuAnn, because I am going to have to go lock my door now because the foil hat just walked by.
We don't want to be responsible for any Thanksgiving Eve crazy pants happening in Vashon Island here. So, alrighty, you guys, thank you tons. As always, I totally just love and respect the both of you, the information that you bring and the way that you share it, and that we can take a serious topic and still have a good time with it. Thank you tons.
All right,
thanks,
thank
LuAnn.
you.
All right,
have
bye
a good
guys.
Holiday.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining me again today for another episode of A Well-Designed Business. This podcast is a production of WindowWorks in Livingston, New Jersey, your trade resource for custom window treatments and awnings. Learn more about WindowWorks at www.windowworks-nj.com. All of our music is original music by Room 2 Productions. Please contact us if you want to learn more about original music for your business or your events.